What are the commonalities among leaders who sustain excellence over an extended period of time?
Ed Latimore, it's great to have you here on the Learning Leader Show, man. Welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Sure. We spoke briefly before we started recording, Ed, about excellence and my love of studying those who have sustained excellence over an extended period of time. And you are certainly one of those. And you've also done a good job of surrounding yourself with others who have as well. What have you found, Ed, to be some of the commonalities among people who have sustained excellence over an extended period of time?
You know, I can't remember the book, but this section always stuck with me because someone like took it out and put it on Instagram or something, and I said, "Oh, that's great." High achievers, people that like and who sustain it over time, they tend to be a paradox of immense like incredible self-confidence, but also insecurity, and those two things come together and it creates this fusion reaction where it drives them to always prove that they're better than everyone, but they simultaneously think they're good, or and maybe not better than everyone is in terms of other people, but they're always trying to prove to themselves at the very least that they are not incapable,
Hmm.
and they're always trying to prove to others that they are capable, even if they deep down believe that. And I thought of when I read that, I was like, wow, that's really interesting, because at my core, I think that I bring a lot more to the table than anyone. I tell people all the time, I go, I'm probably going to be the most interesting person that most people ever have the fortune of meeting. At the same time, I believe that I always have to do more and be better. I'm never satisfied. Now, as I've grown and matured, that has turned into this idea of I'm content. I really enjoy my life. I can look at what's occurred and what I've went through and how that's built me, and I can go, okay, we've been through some things. We got a few lucky breaks, and we have learned the hard way, but survived long enough to reap the lesson, so we don't have to learn the hard way again. And I can be grateful and content,
Mhm.
but I'm not. Uh, but at the same time, I'm not like ever gonna just rest, because I know there's just I only get 80, maybe 90 years on this planet. The last 10 of which I gotta start cutting stuff out. Like I can't decide I wanna work on my jumper at the age of 90, man. I gotta figure that out now.
When you say something about that you believe you'll be the most interesting person that people meet, how do you juxtapose that with being humble? Because that's a statement that is not one from humility, at least I don't sense. But I sense you do have humility about you from doing all of the pre-work for this one, Ed, that's part of what's driven you. So like this delicate balance. I mean, Kat Cole might say like her ideal leader is someone who has this equal balance of courage and confidence mixed equally with curiosity and humility, right? Like the courage and confidence to say, this is the way we're going to do it. I have courage to stand up to people, and I'm confident based upon my previous success that I'm going to have future success. At the same time, I also realize I don't have it all figured out. I need some help. I'm going to be aggressively pursuing my curiosity and obsessions with great rigor, with humility, and that equal balance is what can drive a productive achiever. What do you think about that?
I think that I've really given up on the idea of there being a unified thought process or behavior that drives you in everything. I
Mhm.
just I don't know if it's possible or not, but I do know it is highly unlikely, and I've yet to meet someone who has manifested that and been successful. You know, it's easy to be lazy and everything. Your life just goes to trash, and it's easy to be arrogant and everything, but you'll just alienate everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and people won't be they won't be eager to help you succeed, and no one makes it on their own. So then you get run into another problem where your growth is stifled. So what I have to do, and perhaps all people who have any type of like, sustained excellence or repeated success have to do, is they have to compartmentalize and they have to realize that there are levels to their communication. I cannot, like I have to remember that, okay, when it comes to having conversations and people being open and interested in hearing what I have to say and wanting to root for me, I know that that is only possible because of the achievement that I have. And I know I only had that achievement because I approached it with this attitude of a competitor, of someone who is out to prove they're better and know they're better. But those two things, if I were to switch roles, that would be a recipe for ruin. I couldn't approach people with this sense that I'm better and I have something to prove to everyone. And imagine me trying to go into everything with the whether it be boxing or studying in school or even service in the military, just thinking of things that I've done. Imagine trying to go into that with this almost counterproductive humility. Like there's a place for it, but when it comes time to get things done, that's not usually the place for it.
Gotcha.
Likewise, when it comes to connecting people, that's not connecting with people and making a difference and being able to teach, being relatable. That's very important work that a person has to do. I'm a big believer in giving back. You can't really give back if people aren't willing to receive what you're giving, and they're not going to be interested in receiving what you give if you do it with a certain attitude. So to sum that up, I don't think there is one way a person has to be. I think that adaptability is probably more
Mm-hmm.
useful. If you're the same way with everyone, you're gonna
I
same
guess,
with
yeah.
everyone all the time. You're gonna have a big problem, I think.
It's like I feel like some people, when to flip a switch. Do you happen to
Right.
watch the Miami Heat? Do you watch Miami Heat at all, the basketball team?
I do not.
Okay,
I,
so let me briefly bring something up that I think about two guys on that team that could flip a switch. And this is, I usually like these to be timeless, and this won't because I'm dating it, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Tyler Hero and Jimmy Butler, two of their best players. Tyler Hero last night just went off and basically won the game for his team. These are guys that when they get on the court, they have they I don't find them to be humble at all. I think they have swag. They've got huge confidence, and that is part of what makes them excellent at their craft while they play. Now, in practice, and I've heard this from others who know them well, in practice and off the court and other things, they work with incredible humility to strive to always get
right.
better, not resting on the fact that they crushed it the last game or the last series, but that they're driving to get better and better and better. And that combination of this high level of swagger and confidence during game time mixed with this humility to say, I've got to continue working on myself and practice to get better so that when the lights get bright, I'm ready to roll. And I would imagine you, as a former boxer, you had to live in those kind of both worlds regularly, because when you get in the ring, I'm not a boxer and never been one, but I would imagine you can't go in there thinking like, oh, I hope I do well. You have to go in there thinking like, I'm going to crush this guy,
Right.
because that's just, I'd like to hear what you think. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're describing is learning,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and you have to learn so you can execute.
Mm-hmm.
and you only learn, what is that saying? If your glass is full, I can't put my
Hmm.
stuff in it, something to that effect, right? Uh, so that means a guy he has to recognize that he got where he's at. Yes, there's some talent. Yes, there's work ethic, but there's a lot of absorbing the proper instruction, being receptive to what works and what's going to drive you to become better.
Hmm.
Okay, so you do all that. You have, that's the only way you can get better. You can't get into a position to be this way if you're not like that. But then once you get to towards game time, where lights on, all that stuff, yeah, either you know it or you don't. And and even if you don't know it, you really should act like you do, and that you know it better than the other people, because now you're in a competition. It is now a zero-sum game. Learning
Hmm.
is not a zero-sum game. Competition is.
Interesting. Ed, you have so many fascinating parts of your life between boxing, the military, being a physicist, uh, an alcoholic at one point, or at least having to get sober from alcohol. There's a lot to get to it, and you've written about this, and I want to cover some of the parts of your life, and then ask you to expand on some of the key learnings you've picked up. And the first one is never underestimate the power of being likable and controlling your emotions. You've identified that as being an important part of your life. Can you share more?
Yeah, people tend to go out of their way to help you succeed if they like you, right? And even if you're gonna come at it with the come to that idea with, okay, well, maybe I don't need help, whatever. You gotta understand, nothing is really neutral. People either are trying to help you, whether it be by a small amount or a large amount, or they're trying to move ahead of you or set you back, whatever, by a small or a large amount. And we're not talking about everybody, because most people don't care about you, but the ones you interact with directly, who do have some type of influence or bearing on you, it's one or the other. When people like you, they will help you, and you will get more opportunities to do things. Uh, and it's going to be up to you to seize those opportunities and use them, but you won't get them otherwise. The thing that comes to mind immediately, I remember when I was at Fort Leonard Wood, and I was going through basic training. And if you've never gone through basic training is just, and I did it when I was older, and I just, it's monotonous. It's not physically challenging, but after a while you do kind of, you get worn down by being, you're basically institutionalized. They tell you where to go. They tell you, when to eat, when to sleep, whatever, right? Almost when to go to the bathroom. So that's different. Certainly going into it as an adult, and you also you can't read. It's just boring. Sometimes boring, and then there's no way to like express that frustration. You're just kind of there, like maybe your morning workouts. Anyhow, the cool thing though, what they don't tell you is you pretty much just gotta show up. Like if you just get out of bed every morning, follow the instructions, and just move, you're gonna graduate. You'll be in the army, whatever. Here, there's only one thing you have to do, and that is shoot. You have to pass shooting qualification. You have to hit 23 out of 40 targets that are set up, I believe, in increments of 50 yards out to 300 from where you're shooting from. And I was a terrible shot. I don't know why, it just wasn't my thing. And on qualification day, you get 3 tries, and if you don't make it, if you don't hit 23 out of 40, you get recycled. And that means they don't kick you out, at least not the first time you fell. They just hold you over and then set you back to the beginning of basic training to do it all over again. And they don't shoot qualification to the 6th week of a 10-week program. So you really, I mean, you waste a lot of time, and then you got to go do through the hard parts of basic again. Anyhow, I failed my 3 shots. Three tries. But I understood the basic principles of being likable. Even in a position where you can't, mingle or express your personality, being likable just depends on where you are and what you have to do. But I'm reading that room, and I had been doing that because I didn't know when it was going to come in handy. But I've always known it's better to be likable rather than unlikable. Don't you know? They had a few extra rounds left, and they picked a few people who didn't qualify to shoot for a fourth time. And on that fourth try, I hit 23 out of 40. I felt an unbelievable wave of relief, and I knew it was because people were looking out for me. I mean, I had the experience when I was studying for my degree. I was getting my ass handed to me one semester. It was just bad. I think I was taking electromagnetism, mechanics, solid state physics, and something else. I can't even remember. Oh, thermodynamics. It was a hard load. Anybody listening who is familiar with a physics undergraduate load, they should be wondering why in the heck my advisors even let me do that, because I argued to do it. I said, let me do it. I'm trying to get out of there quick. Yeah, I wasn't equipped for this whatsoever. And I was like failing everything to the point where I had to like pull out of 2 classes, and it still wasn't going to be an easy uphill battle. But I knew that if I could, if they saw me working hard, but they had to see me working hard. Otherwise, I could just say I'm working hard or whatever, right? I know if they saw me working hard, they would work with me and help me and give me extra time. So I was in office hours all the time, staying later, asking questions, right? So I mean, I was really showing that I was trying to grasp the material, like really trying to understand it. And I ended up passing both classes with a C. Now part of that is hard work, but the other part of it is I got opportunities to earn back things, go over homework that I may have missed or whatever, and just different opportunities that were given me because I figured out in that situation being likable, and maybe that's just a catchphrase for respectable, whatever, all that. There was showing that I was interested and I really wanted to work. I couldn't just, lean back and give up. A lot of people would have, when you get that notice like halfway through the semester, like, yo, you're not doing too high. They send that out. I mean, they don't say it that way. I think they say you're like in danger of failing, but a lot of kids give up when they get that, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to do the work hard, and it's going to, and whatever, where the chips may fall, they're gonna fall. But I know that if they see me working, they will work with me and they will help me. They will lend their time, because they want to see you succeed. So the tons of, and that's just, we haven't even touched like, how I grew up and where I grew up in a really rough area, public housing project. And there, if people like you, they tend not to harass you as much. And that doesn't mean being a weakling and being a pushover. It means that people genuinely like you. So in that environment, what is being likable? Your jokes, understanding sports. I didn't know sports. That didn't help, but I could make people laugh, and I could keep to myself. I didn't be as and the part about controlling my emotions, that's key too, because when things happen, you know, uh, you can react one way or you can react the other. Some reactions have a much stronger counter reaction than others, and whether you choose incorrectly or not is not the point. The point is you choose, you don't react. You know, and sometimes I chose incorrectly, and found myself fighting 2 or 3 people. So other times I chose correctly, and I was like, okay, this the I left the situation without suffering physical harm, having to physically defend myself. Uh, but either way, I learned very early to think through these things, not just fly off in the handle and be a hothead. So, and that maybe I have a tendency towards that, but now at this point, it's so ingrained in me to just relax and think through things before reacting to them, that I think that continues to serve me well to this day.
For the person listening, Ed, who says, I agree, uh, being likable is super important. I think I may be likable. I'm not exactly sure. I want to get better at this. Are there a few action steps, or what are a few action steps people can take? It sounds funny even asking this, but what are a few action steps people can take to be more likable?
All right, so I want to give these steps in kind of a you can take this system and put it anywhere,
Mhm.
because you won't always be able to tell jokes. Like I couldn't tell any jokes when I was in basic training, for example, things like that. So these general ideas hopefully will help. First you have to not care about being likable. You have to care about being effective, being efficient, being yourself, living true to yourself, because the funniest irony is that it's only when you stop trying to be likable that you actually become likable. And I think a lot of people are too concerned with people trying to, with people liking them, then that they behave in a way that makes them unlikable. They're trying to curry favor, and you can't really do it that way. Instead, you just live and do what you like to do what's important to you, do it to a high standard, so people see you take yourself seriously. And what that leads to, at the very least, is respect. And the respect doesn't always translate into being likable, but it's a lot closer to it than being unlikable. So that's the first step. The second step is to treat everyone with respect, and to all have impeccable manners. Even no situation is made worse by being respectful and by having manners. And you can take somebody who was ready to really just rip your head off, and if you greet them calmly and you sir or ma'am, you have completely changed a situation that was probably ready to go like straight megaton, but you went, okay, I'm here to cool this off. Just go, okay, so just let me know what's the problem. How can I help you? Sir, what's going on? I'm trying. A lot of times I'll call someone friend. I'm like, I'm not your friend. I'm like, yeah, but just bear with me for a minute and keep going. And it's amazing. And when you come at it with when you come out of situations with the idea that a person is a person and they deserve to be respected, until they prove otherwise, and even beyond them, you can do quite a lot with this in terms of making progress in your professional life or your social one, or wherever you're at. If you want to be likable, those are the two things you got to do. You got to not care about being likable. You have to care more about um, being respectable, liking the person that you see in the mirror, and looking up to that person and behaving in that way. And you also have to treat the other people that you meet with respect and interact with them with basic manners. And you will be amazed at how many people suddenly like you. You may not find you like what I'm saying is not gonna make you like the life of the party. It may or may not. Like you're not gonna suddenly find yourself getting invited to all the most happening shindigs in town. uh, but what you will find is that more people who are closer to what you want, what makes you feel comfortable. Those are the people who are going to interact with you. You'll find your tribe. I think a lot of
Mhm.
people have an idea of what a tribe should look like, and your tribe, you have no idea what the tribe's going to look like. Like I can tell you that right now. You don't know until you're really comfortable with who you are and what you're doing, and you're like, wow. Well, it turns out maybe I was a bit of a lone wolf. I only like three people, but these three people, man, I really rock with them. Or it's like, yo, I really enjoy. I got a buddy who's a huge extrovert, way more than me, and I'm not introverted like by far, but he is very comfortable in that scenario. He ended up, as we grew up, that was his thing, always interacting and hosting with people. Now he's a bartender and he works at and his two jobs. He's a bartender and he does photo shoots for people at weddings. Great life, very like excellent for him. That would drive me mad, right? but I like him, he likes me, and we have a lot of the same friends. You know, you got to figure out what your ideal life looks like, and from there, you know, you will behave in a way to manifest that, and that's gonna bring around people. Assuming you're treating everyone with respect, that's gonna bring around people
Yeah.
that like you.
I think that first part, Ed, is really people have a good sense for a fake, and when they sense a phony or someone not being authentic to who they are or what they're really about, that's a quick way to not be likable. As if people
Yeah,
sense you're a fraud, you're not being true or genuine to who you actually are. You don't. I think that authenticity and vulnerability are also are keys to like just being yourself and not actually trying to be likable, but just being real and being you. And like you said, you may not be liked by all, but you'll find your tribe.
absolutely, and that's the most. You know, um, but I've been with my girlfriend now for like 8 years, right? And one of the things that I
You said it with
tell,
so much excitement, Ed.
oh
Come on,
well,
let's juice it up a little bit.
yeah, no, it's been great. I mean, it's 8 years. If it wasn't great, it wouldn't be the number eight. You know, there you
For
go.
sure.
There's a.
There we go. Okay.
But one of the things I'm always telling her is that I really like that I get to be myself
Mhm.
around you. And really, I mean, even if, and what I mean by that is like I could not be happy, and it's certainly not happy enough to sustain a relationship for almost a decade if if I was someone else, like if I had to do things that weren't interesting to me, or that I was not even remotely having fun with, or behave in a way, or go see people do things. Like, no, I get to be myself, and you value that,
Mhm.
like the person I am. You know, like people have to become really comfortable with the idea that they are not for everyone. Like you are not everyone's cup of tea, and you really weren't ever designed and no one is. You know. Yeah. What I mean, the best presidents in history who lead in the nation have an approval rating of like 60, maybe, and that's high, man, like 60%. So it's not you're not supposed to be for everyone. But your goal, I think it's a very worthwhile goal in life to figure out who you are, and then surround yourself with people who bring out the best in you and do not demand you to be something else, or feel comfortable if you're something else, or feel uncomfortable if you're something else. I have to say.
Yeah, I like the phrase, if you that relates to that. If you try to get everyone to like you, then nobody will love you. And I think that plays there too when it comes to, if you're being real and genuine and authentic, then you can build some loving relationships. And I say love kind of like on a broader terms and
Yeah.
broader beyond just a relationship like with a spouse or a girlfriend. Okay, Ed, I do want to get to some of the other parts of your life. Second, no one cares what happened to you or what you've been through. No one is coming to save you. Share more why this has become part of your life and part of your philosophy and how it's impacted you.
So I think about a lot of the stuff that I endured growing up, right?
Hmm.
And I'm born into the typical, at-risk youth, a single mom, public housing, poor, all that stuff, abuse. It is all there, right? But something I realized when I stopped drinking is that, or, well, throughout my drinking, and then more ultimately to my stop, the whole journey, is that it's not, society is not going to take pity on you if your problems cause problems for someone else. And the example I always give is let's pretend that I kept drinking, and I killed somebody. like I killed somebody in an accident. Well, they're not going to be in they're not going to be in there in the courtroom going, well, this guy, he didn't grow up with a solid family unit and was physically abused growing up. Like none of this is gonna matter, right? They're gonna just lock me up, okay? Uh, and that's a really powerful lesson, and it's one of those lessons that unfortunately a lot of people don't even um if they ever learn it, it's too late. But most times they don't ever learn it. They either just continue to get lucky and dodge severe consequences, or the consequences, or they endure the consequences of those actions. But what I learned is really that people are not. And some people care. You pay those professionals to care and talk to you about it. But it's really up to you to work through your own issues, because if your issues cause you a problem in society is not gonna go, well, you had this issue, we get it, right? It's like something that I learned, that a lot of uh, people who abuse children, who sexually abuse children, a lot of them are victims of abuse themselves, and the court doesn't go, that happened to you, so won't exercise some leniency. Like, no, it's your job. It's unfortunate that happened to you, but it's your job to take your issues and prevent them from being passed on. To keep, look. It's really unfortunate that we have to deal with all types of tragedy growing up, but it it's our responsibility. I really believe it's our responsibility to not pass that tragedy on. We don't. You wanna do the best you can to leave the world a better place than how you found it, and a lot of that starts with internal work,
Hmm.
dealing with the tragedy and the trauma you've been through, so you don't take it out on somebody some way and bring a lot of problems on. And really, I realized a lot of my drinking was driven by um, this desire to kind of feel to fit in, because I never felt like I belonged anywhere growing up, or at least not in my formative years for sure. And so I had to deal with that, because if I because any all problems that start to happen, and no one goes, he just had a rough childhood. They don't care, right? But they care about us keeping themselves safe, making their time with people enjoyable. And if I'm messing that up, if my behavior driven by a habit that I developed to cope with other issues, yeah, they're not worried about that.
How do,
So
how do,
I want people. Hmm?
I'm just curious how this is really impressive stuff right now, because you have your life experience pretty much has given you the right to um I mean, you've been victimized literally, you've been a victim of some really bad things that you could say, look, man, like pointing to me, you haven't had to deal with any of that stuff, so you don't understand what it's like. This is why I've messed up, or I made poor decisions, or I do this. And instead you're saying, no, I'm not going to do that, and other people shouldn't do that. Instead, they should look internal, work on themselves in order to make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else, kids or other people around me. How have you built this perspective over the years?
Um, that's a good question. I hate the answer. Oh, it was just me. Like, no, because that's not true. But the reality, I guess, I recognize that. Okay, it's selfish mostly. I recognize that to get things out of life, I have to do certain things, and I want those things out of life, right? So then we start looking at a system
To
to
get what
get
things?
those.
You mean like to get money, to get fame, to get
Not the well. Well, I mean, I like where I live, right? So that costs money. I like being able to go get food. I like having good people around me.
Mm-hmm.
I understand like all these things. I like having good friends.
Mm-hmm.
I like being healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm just listing things. I don't really care about fame. That just seems to be like an odd byproduct of doing interesting. Well, used to be interesting things, but that's neither here nor there. Um, But so understanding that I want all of these things, I got to figure out how to get them. And when you start studying how to become successful, you realize that it's about delivering value. And that's like the top level basic idea, deliver value. But then you dive into it and you realize part of delivering value is also not subtracting it. And value subtracting behaviors are destructive. So you start thinking about all the ways that you are destructive to people and things around you, and then how to minimize it, how to get rid of it. And so I go, okay, this attitude, I can look at this person, and that is not a good attitude because I can see how it makes me feel, how it makes everyone else around them feel, the opportunities it cuts off of them. Let me make sure I don't ever behave that way. All right. And so I start, and then now from there, I'm digging in, I'm doing the work on myself because I want more out of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
What that does is it evolves into a system for living that I think the original goal was not let me deal with my trauma. That was never. I mean, I wish it was. That'd be cool to say, right? No, the original goal was let me figure out how to advance my life,
Yep.
and then as I realized, okay, you got this problem here, you got that problem there. Well, why do you have that problem now? Maybe that is innate, like trying to dig deeper into myself, but the asking the question like what's wrong, look, anyone can sit and go. I got a copy of Think and Grow Rich on my bookcase, and in Think and Grow Rich he talks about how you treat other people. Now that's a good start, but if you want to go and you want to execute on that idea so you can think and grow rich, you have to start thinking about this kind of stuff, and then it leads you to you want to be a complete person. You want to leave the world better. At least that's what it is for me. I mean, one of the big things I talk about is forgiveness. Forgiveness is such a powerful idea to me, and I was exposed to that idea when I was 23. Like the true idea of forgiveness, and I remember that exact age because that's when I stumbled upon A Course in Miracles, a whole God about teaching you how to forgive other people. And it's through that forgiveness, and then the idea just made sense to me. Okay, let's not try to balance the emotional books. You made me feel this way. I'm gonna try and make you feel that way. So we balance it out. Boom, right? Instead, it's like I'm gonna let this go because I don't want to feel that poison. What do they say about forgiveness, or what do they say about holding a grudge? That holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That always stuck with me and is very powerful. And when you get that idea, you go, okay, well, I'm not interested in dying, and on top of that, I don't want to make anyone else sick. Let me keep my time and my space right. And if you do that, a lot of the times, what happens is you attract more opportunities and you get a better life. And I think I'm a really good example of that. I think I try to study people who do that. One thing I learned early and just continues to be reinforced is the value of treating people well. It's really amazing, and I wish people got this. If you're really selfish, like you're trying to take care of yourself and set yourself up for the best possible outcome, that's being really selfish. If you do that in accordance with what we'll call um, the laws, like the laws of society and the laws of the universe, whatever you think those are, probably something close to religion. If you're selfish within confines of that law, what we should create is a really generous and beautiful world, because everyone's going to be trying to do its best for themselves, and they'll realize that the best way to accomplish this goal is to get other people on your side to make them want to look at you favorably and want to help you out. So back to the original question, how did I build this framework? It all started with that idea. How can I make my life great? How can I make my time on this planet worthwhile? How can I how can I have the best experience ever? And a lot of it is dealing with your issues. If you deal with your issues, you set yourself up to get more, because you'll stop stepping on your foot. When you deal with an issue, it's like it, so when you don't when you haven't dealt with your issues, it's like trying to push the gas pedal with your foot on the brake. Okay,
Mhm.
every issue you deal with is taking your foot off the brake a little more, and you move a little further, and it gets a little easier to push and push and push, so eventually you got your foot off to the car is moving. You're making real progress, and you don't really want to go back to wasting gas and burning out to shreds and things like that. So
I think we all right now can picture these people in our lives who there are a couple of things. One, they're more interesting each time we see them. Two, they always seem to bring some sort of unique value to our lives, whether it's at work or at home or socially. And those people are building a better life for themselves by focusing on being more interesting, being a value added person to whatever group they find themselves in. And so, like you're saying, in a way, you're going to get more of what you want by trying really hard to add value to the lives of other people.
absolutely, like bingo. When I ask people who want to learn like how I make any money online, I always ask them, how is money made? That's the question that will let me know, okay, or well, can you even do this, and then what do we gotta undo, right? I want to know how is money made, and the people who get it right, or at least show some promise, are the ones who understand that it is made when you give people something they want,
Mhm.
right? You can't like they don't care. Like no one cares what you want. Look, man. Look, I love playing chess and eating popcorn. Let me figure out how to monetize that, and we're on our way, right? But in the meantime, what are other skills do I have that people do care about? Well, people do care about writing. They want to be able to write well because because people recognize the monetary value in that. More importantly, perhaps they recognize that being able to write copy or grow a social media following, that's really important. So those are the skills I can put forth in the world and get some money back. Now, this question and conversation isn't about money, but we're using this to make a point that when you give value, people give you something you value in return to experience that value. When you're an interesting person, when you have lessons, when you have insight, when you are an ear, when you make people feel good to be around you, they're gonna want to be around you. They're gonna want to introduce you to their friends. They're gonna want to help you build a life, and it's a really cool experience to think about. Because have you ever just sat there and thought, man, I have this opportunity because of this person, or I met because of that person, and I only met that person because I took some time to answer a question on the internet. Well, like so much of my life is that kind of outcome. That someone sent me a message, I'm like, hey man, thank you for the message. Do this. Like, whoa, you respond. I'm like, man, well, you messaged me. What'd you expect? And then from there, who knows where it goes. But the idea is to get a much better life, to have a much more enjoyable time on this planet. You should really help other people in the way that you are best at helping them.
Mhm.
Not everyone's gonna have the same skills and knowledge, but someone, we all know something that other people want to learn, and we all have certain traits that other people are interested in. Like, I remember when I used to go to anime conventions, man. Look, they ain't never gonna see me at an anime convention ever again, right? and I'll probably never have a video game system. It's not that those things are good or bad. I'm just not interested in them anymore, you know.
Hmm.
But if I was, there's a whole set of people, and if I can go and and talk about the anime, they're like, oh wow, someone to bond with. It's great. Let's talk and be friends. And you treat them well and with respect, and all of a sudden you're likable. It's very simple.
Uh, it's good stuff. The third one here. This one's really important because I'm sure you're getting a ton of questions. Like one of the frequent questions I get is about building something, building a podcast, building a business, writing a book. These are things that take time. And for, as you wrote it, the most powerful belief you can have is that given enough time, you can learn anything. Rome wasn't built in a day, but Hiroshima was wiped out in seconds. And what this is the great, exceptional things take a long time to happen. And conversely, 9/11 happened in a second, in an instant. That plane hit the building, the next plane hit the building, and boom, we've got terrible things. Like you said, Hiroshima. The bad things happen quickly. The great things take a long time. And this is one of your kind of laws or parts of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love for you to expand on that and how that applies to both you as well as people who could implement it into their life.
Yeah, so you got to remember that every good thing in life is really a function of time, you know. It's the nature of creation and destruction. So whenever you create something, what you're doing is you're taking a bunch of disparate things with their own trajectory and agenda, and you are moving them into alignment and coordination. And this is not easy. It takes it takes energy, it takes time, it takes patience. You'll get one in line and the other one will be running away. If someone wants to describe this process, it's like trying to herd cats. And if you ever tried to get a bunch of cats to be in one place and they didn't want to be there, you know what I'm talking about, right? They will fight, resist, run at every moment you get, every chance you get. But each time, you get a little closer, you learn something. Like, okay, maybe if I leave some catnip here, those ones will stay. But that one doesn't like catnip. In fact, he hates catnip. So I got to figure out the proper distance for the catnip and tuna because that's what he likes. And eventually, you do get them all in one place. It just takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes time because all of these parts, some are slower than others, some are going in a different direction, some are so fast, some have a lot that they need to learn to catch up. It's just different. This analogy applies to the parts of any worthwhile skill. I think about this when I wrote that. I was thinking about my time with physics, and I was originally in high school. I was a terrible math student, not even remotely good. I think the best grade I got was a B in like ninth grade geometry, but everything after that was like a C and a D. I actually have an article on my website where I went and got my high school transcript so I could make a point about this. That that I was not a naturally gifted math student. I went on as an adult though to get a degree in physics, which automatically by default with how much math there is gives you a mathematics minor. I could go in 1 year have a degree in math as well. Okay, how did that happen? Well, at one point in my life when I was poor at math, I had this fixed mindset. I thought I either had it or I didn't. Boom, whatever, right? I started boxed for 12 years. And over the course of that time, I watched myself get better. And boxing is cool because and it's like any sport, really. It's just boxing is the one I went through, is that you get to see your weaknesses and you get a very quick feedback mechanism in the form of getting hit or tired or whatever, right? And you get better and better, but it doesn't all come at once. It's not overnight. You're a finished product. One day you learn how to throw the jab from any position, and that's important because you're never going to have an ideal position in boxing. You're always going to be slightly off balance, slightly out of step, slightly misplaced. And then another day, you learn how to slip correctly, and bob and weave and be in position to throw a right hand. These are little things. These are the cats, right? They're all going in a different direction, but you're pulling it together slowly but surely. It just takes time and it takes energy. You stick with it, and then before you know it, all of a sudden your footwork's together. You can move in and out of range and position. You can let punches off. And you're really an effective fighter. You're not good yet, but you're effective. And that's a lot better than being ineffective. Now you've
Mhm.
made some strides. Now, what do they say about being a black belt, right? In a martial art. Now you know just enough to be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really know enough to be good, just dangerous. But that's what you get. And then it just keeps coming along, coming along. I took that same idea and I applied it to physics when I decided I was going to go back to school for that. And I went all the way back to the beginning, relearned my algebra, relearned geometry and trigonometry, and I had to figure out how to make it all work together in a cohesive framework, little by little. But I knew, I said, wow, if I did this for boxing, I can do this for math, and I really believed that. And I was never like, I got to do it by this day or that day. I mean, I had some goals. Sure, I would like to have done it, but at the end, I just figured as long as I practiced correctly, eventually, and got the right teachers and everything, and was really committed to learning, and was not going to accept not, and I wasn't going to accept anything less than proficiency. Those things together over time, eventually everything just came together, and it continues to do that for everything in my life. You know, you can look at my website, for example. That's an 8-year work of art, and it's just, I mean, white people understand what I'm saying here, but it's just over 40 now for domain ranking. So after 8 years of like work, that's like, they're like, okay, what does that mean? Well, now my website is just good enough to not be bad. Like now enough people go to it where the search algorithm is like, this guy might know what he's talking about. Let's see how people respond. But that's a lot of time. That's learning how to write. That's learning how to link. That's being interesting. That's picking topics. And there are articles on that site. Not everyone, but almost everyone. A lot of them are not the original version, because I learned so much about writing from the inception of the blog to now that I had to go back and fix that stuff. It was terrible. It couldn't stay. It either had to go or I had to go back and edit it. But that's only possible because I said, okay, I'm going to build a blog, a website. I'm going to do it because I want to write. I like it. That's my gift to the world. That's one of my gifts to the world. And so now I know I owe it to myself to get incrementally better.
Yeah, I think back to Allison Levine when she described what it was like climbing Mount Everest, and she said, "I couldn't look at the top. I looked at the 3 feet in front of me, and then the 3 feet in front of me, and then the 3 feet in front of me, and then the 3 feet in front of me." And that was the goal, was to continue getting 3 feet in front of me. And then before you know it, she turned around and she's on the top of Mount Everest. She summited the thing. And I think that's you. That's what I think is a commonality among people who have sustained excellence, is their willingness and ability to keep going. Not like this, but like this you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, this
Yeah.
gradual incline, because nobody does this. That's not realistic. If they do, they may go like this. They may go straight down or straight up, straight down, as opposed to just getting incrementally better, putting in the work day after day after day. This is Steve Martin going to the comedy clubs with one person in it watching him while he works on his 20-minute set, and 10 years later he's selling out arenas, right? Others view him as an overnight success. Nah, not true. Not true.
Not
He's
at all.
plodding along, building his set till he gets good enough, and just getting a little bit better. I feel like that's a story of what you've been able to do and what you're continuing to do.
Yeah, because I know that's the like if you want to like talk, oh, does this guy have it figured out? I don't have everything figured out. I don't have most things figured out. I don't think anyone does. There's too much to know.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing anyone with any shred of success has figured out is that it is just small gains, and it's small gains, not necessarily like you. We all have a goal, right? But that goal kind of takes a back seat when you fall in love with the process and system you set up, and you're just looking forward to just being a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, and you're doing it with faith almost. In fact, not almost. I think we move by faith
Mm-hmm.
because there is no guarantee. You take the Steve Martin example. There's no guarantee he ever gets to the point where he is selling out arenas. Instead, he's just like, if I just get better, and I believe this, if you just make a movement with intention in the direction of your goal, then you will cause a bunch of other things to happen in support of that goal that you did not necessarily plan or predict would happen. But they're all just positive externalities of the actions you took, the deliberate actions you took towards getting better. I mean, here's a perfect example. I always say my boxing career is a lot of luck. But is it really a lot of luck? Because if I wasn't working the opportunities, I wouldn't be able to take advantage of them. Well, when I was an amateur, I had to. I got the ability, very rare. I was signed to not signed. I had a promoter. Or not a promoter. Promoter is probably wrong. You can't use these words in amateur boxing. That's what I'm trying to figure. I had a sponsor. That's the best word. I had a sponsor in Los Angeles. They paid for my apartment. They gave me a monthly salary. They paid for my food. And how did I get that opportunity? Because originally they were taking these guys who were former Division One athletes and trying to convert them into boxers. I am not a former Division One athlete. In fact, when you look at the website they had up where they were looking at the criteria, uh, they wanted guys that were at least 6'3". I'm 6'1" on my tippy toes, man. I'm like there. They wanted guys who were like between a certain age range. I'm pretty sure I was out the age range, and they wanted guys who had a former Division One athletic background, whether in basketball, football, baseball, whatever. Right? Had none of these things. I got this opportunity because I made it to the national tournament by winning the state tournament, and at the national tournament, I beat their guy. And but at the national tournament, that's a random draw. I don't have any control over that. All I had control over was putting the time in, training, 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 getting a little better, getting a little better. And as a result, I kept beating people until that opportunity presented itself to me.
There's one more part, Ed, I want to cover before we close. A limitation is only as powerful as the energy you give to it. Your dreams also follow this same law. Can you share more?
Oh, for sure. It's really amazing when you have I always say, right, you're only as successful, or you'll only be as successful as your worst habit. And if you don't get those things under control, they're going to control you, and that's just the truth of it. But here's a funny thing, and until you control something, it's really amazing how much energy you give it. I think about my time with alcohol, and when I realized it was getting bad, and I was like, all right, so what are the signs it's getting bad, right? Well, I am changing my daily schedule of training to go drink. Okay, that's a pretty big deal because there's something I put a lot of energy and time into, and now what I'm doing is I am saying, okay, this thing is more important, and I may not have recognized it as a limitation at that moment, but it was a big limitation. It was a big problem. And until I recognized what it was, I couldn't even deal with it. I was like, oh man, this is what I'm supposed to do. Let's go party and drink, right? Like, no. It's a limitation at that point. It's a problem. And that, I put that there on my site is in a bit of poetic language because it just sounds better that way. But if I was to give a more precise rewording of it, I would say you have to recognize the problem first. Once you recognize the limitation or recognize the problem, then you can effectively deal with it, and then you can take that same energy and you can put it towards your goal. Because I tell you what, once I got the drinking under control and I stopped, now I had not. I mean, then I turned into a guy. A lot of people don't realize this when they look at my bio. I don't even know if you did. All the things that have drawn attention to me, the military, the boxing, the physics, the writing. If you look at my life at age 27, none of that's there. I don't
Hmm.
have a credit in school. I ain't enlisted. I didn't even turn pro until 2013. I was amateur before then. Uh, but then what happens? I I I had a wake up moment, and I went and I said I gotta make up for lost time. So I'm doing all of this, and the only reason I can do all of this at the same time from the period of 2013 to like 2017 is because I got my biggest limitation under control. I had the energy. I was giving that. I was feeding that. I took and I was feeding in every other direction. And now, or not every other direction, I was feeding it towards other things that put me into that. I gave myself more energy to herd those
Was there
cats.
a rock bottom? Why did you do that? Why didn't you do, what made you change course?
I man, when I talk about this, sometimes it sounds um like there was some kind of like random divine intervention. But no, what happened is so I first enlisted, right? I was not sober when I enlisted. And what I mean by that is I didn't go down to the station, the map station, and I was drinking and I was like, Tommy, I was like, no, I mean, what I mean is I was still in the active process of drinking and everything. I was clear out, I believe, though. Well, and what happened is you go through basic, that's 10 weeks without booze. Then you go to AIT, that's another 22 weeks without booze. I managed to sneak out one time and get a drink. I came back, plans on point. I'm like, okay, because I do this to get money for school and advance my life and everything. But I think I can still carry on the way I carried on before I went out. Tried to do it one time, got super drunk, don't remember much about the night. And then I woke up and I said, okay. I just was looking at it, and you ever see the Matrix?
Hmm.
In the Matrix, when they're taking Neo to meet Morpheus, and they suck that bug out of his stomach, and he's like, "Oh snap! What is that? That's crazy! I gotta bounce." And Trinity stops him, and she's like, "You don't want to go down that road, Neo. You know where it ends. You've been there. You know where it ends, and you don't want to be there." I had that crystal clear moment. The only difference is very similar. I said, "I'm gonna be 33 one day." That's just the number I chose. I was 28 at the time. I said, I'm going to be 33 one day. Am I going to have more options in my life, or am I going to have fewer? Okay, I want to have more. What is the big problem? The big problem is the booze.
Hmm.
Let's get that. And here's how crazy it is, right? It's funny looking back at it now because now I'm coming out. It'll be 7 years uh, this December. I remember I said to myself because it was still crazy. It was terrifying thinking about giving it up. I said, I'm gonna do this until I graduate or win a title or write a book. Um, and then I'll let myself have some wine first. I was tricking myself, I guess. But now I'm like, man, no interest whatsoever. And that all started though in terms of like the rock bottom. Fortunately I didn't have to hit a rock bottom
Hmm.
because a lot of times what happens is when you hit rock bottom you shatter or you shatter people around you. That's the example I gave. Like if I had hit somebody while I
Hmm.
was while I was drinking and driving, people would not be interested in helping me or forgiving me. I've crossed over. That's it. game over. But because I stopped it before them, they were like, okay. And then there's a lesson that I got to figure out how to like integrate that. I think that's a really powerful one. If you get in front of your problems
Mm-hmm.
before the law or like other people do, um, people will forgive you. They'll work with you. But if you cause a problem when it's there and you didn't deal with it, they don't care. They'll throw you to the dogs. They'll be happy to watch you suffer and burn. But when you get it under control, they're a lot more lenient. They're a lot friendlier. People. My experience with that has really confirmed that getting a problem under control is 10x better than having to be brought under control for you.
Man, Ed, you strike me as someone who has this amazing awareness and no, I don't know how to properly say this, but no like projection of insecurity. I've met a lot of people who they still are wildly successful by their own definitions of it, but you still sense this projection of being insecure and having to make up for those insecurities in other ways, whether they have to blow it on stupid cars or whatever it may be. Like, the things I sense from you, you have this like real, like comfort in your own skin of, I know who I am. I know the value I can bring. I'm not trying to impress you. We're simply having a conversation, telling you what I think. And that's that. And I just find that to be an extremely likable skill to bring it
Oh,
full
there you
circle,
go.
as we close. I like to close the loop. I really do. I mean it though. I'm not doing that just for the sake of a show. I mean that. And I think that is that's inspiring for me. And I would imagine inspiring for others to hear of like, how can I work enough on myself to really get to the point to where it's like I say what I think, but there's obviously a lot of thought behind it.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is respectable and likable. And so I just want to say thank you for doing that and for bringing that to me into this show.
And no problem. The secret is you just got to get your ego dragged through the mud a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I have been. I mean, now I'm 35, so right. But 25-year-old me is not nearly. It's funny. 25-year-old me has accomplished way less and has a much
Yeah.
more inflated ego. Uh,
Weird how it
but
works.
but as you go through life and you have your ups and your downs, I think what happens, what should happen anyhow, is that you realize that in the quest to be better, it's only a measurement of achievement when you talk about being better than someone. In terms of what you bring to the table as a human who can contribute to someone else's life, even in just a simple conversation or showing interest in their background and personality, their culture, whatever. Everyone has the ability to do that, and I think everyone does at some point. And so you start to find commonalities, and I'm a big fan of finding commonalities in people rather than differences. And then a lot of that comes from my training with forgiveness, because one of the first steps to forgiveness is to realize, and this is a hard thing for a lot of people to do, but it's vital, is to realize that if you were in that person's shoes, you would have done the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like the exact position, with the same weights on rewards and penalties and what they know and what they're capable of, you would have taken the same action. And when you can make that step logically, and to me it's not a difficult step, then you start living in a way where you're focused on bridging the gaps instead of digging them deeper or expanding them.
Right. Wow. Thank you, Ed, again for being here. Where would you send my listeners, viewers, to learn more about you online?
Oh, fortunately or unfortunately for anybody born with my name later who wants to do something online, they are not going to be able to. I'm Ed Latimore everywhere. I'm edlatimore.com. That's my website. I'm Ed Latimore on Twitter, where I'm very active. I'm at Latimore on Instagram, where I'm fairly active. I mean, Instagram verified me, Twitter didn't. So right now we're kind of there. And I'm Ed Latimore on Facebook as well. I'm just Ed Latimore everywhere. Type it into Google, find me
Awesome.
that way too.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, man, for being here. And I'd love to, I'm glad we got connected and got hooked up. I'd love to continue our dialogue as we both progress, man.
Absolutely, man. Thank you again for having me.
All right. Thanks, Ed.